Welcome to this PHP tutorial on the ternary operator. In this video we're going to be writing a short piece of code and I'm going to demonstrate how we can make this a lot shorter by making use of PHP's ternary operator. So I'm going to create an example application which is going to involve an if statement or a couple of if statements, we'll see in a moment, and it's essentially going to check if a user is old enough to do something. There's no context around this, but we're going to be using this as an example just so we can show two examples of the ternary operator. So let's go ahead and write our sample program. It's going to be not a long piece of code, but it will be unnecessarily long anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and create a variable called age, and I'm going to set this to 18. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an if statement to set a particular variable to true or false, depending on whether the user is old enough. So essentially I'm just going to say if, and then I'm going to say else here. So we have the condition here is going to be if the age is greater than or equal to 18. I'm going to set this variable old enough to true. Otherwise I'm going to go ahead and set it to false. Now we could of course remove this else altogether and just create the variable old enough equals false here, so it's essentially guilty until proven innocent. So we could leave it like this, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so now what I'm going to go ahead and do is create another if statement, and this is going to check whether this old enough variable is equal to true, and if it is equal to true I'm going to echo something out, otherwise I'm going to echo something else out. So we do need an if else here. So I'm going to say if old enough is equal to true. I'm using the triple equals, that's just comparing type as well. Other tutorials that do explain that, and I'm just going to echo out old enough. Okay, very simple. And then if the user isn't old enough, so if this old enough variable has remained with a value of false, I'm just going to say not old enough. Okay, so there's nothing too complex about this. However, for such a simple piece of code or such a simple operation, we've used a lot of if statements where they may not be necessary. So let's go ahead and look at the result of this. You'll see at the moment we've got old enough. If we change this to say 16, we get the result not old enough. So that's how it works. That's what we're doing here. Now what we can do is we can make use of the ternary operator to actually shorten this to one line and this to one line. Now for such a short application it doesn't really it doesn't really matter, but if you have a long file in file length, I guess in line size, you're going to want to make use of the ternary operator to try and shorten everything a bit more. So let's go ahead and first take a look at the syntax of the ternary operator, and I'll explain how it works, and then we'll take a look at shortening these. So if I come down here, I'll explain the syntax. Essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to be doing something before the ternary operator. So I'm either going to be echoing or setting a variable equal to a specific value, and then after this we have a pair of brackets which represent a condition as you would normally find in an if statement. Now what we have is very slightly more confusing. It's a question mark, and this is basically like anything after this is the first block of what we want to do if this condition is met, and then we have a colon where, so here is if this condition is met, and here is if this condition is not met, and then we just pop a semicolon on the end. Well, we don't need this, it depends on where it's being used, but in this case it would be. So here is almost the action. What we're doing, we're either setting a variable equal to this value or this value, or we are echoing something out. Now this might confuse you, so let's go ahead and put this into context with regards to what we've just done. So I'm going to be placing this functionality within a ternary operator. So we need to start off with our old enough variable. Okay, and our old enough variable is going to equal. Notice I've put the equals in, whereas before I just had something, and that's because we could also do echo as well, and we'll look at that in terms of this in a moment. Anyway, so old enough equals, now we have our condition. So our condition is basically just this, so we can go ahead and we can cut that and paste that in there. Now if this condition is met, we just say true. Now we could just leave it like this, but what it'd be do is we'd be best to get rid of first of all this, because we don't need that. We're setting this variable here to true if this condition is met, so we fulfilled removing that. Otherwise we could say false, so we've removed the need to store an additional variable. So essentially all of the code I've just removed can be done in one line, as you can see here. So you'll notice that when we refresh our browser we have the same functionality, no errors, and again if we change the age to say 18, this condition is met, therefore this is true, therefore this block here will be executed. So when we refresh we get old enough. Now what's interesting is we can actually apply the same operator, the ternary operator, to this block here. So we can actually, instead of setting a variable value like we've done here, we can actually echo out, and depending on the condition, whether it's met, we can echo something, otherwise we can echo something else. So we can say echo, and in brackets, obviously you wouldn't do an equals here, echo old enough is equal to true. So if old enough is equal to true, echo something here, otherwise echo something here. Okay, so we're just going to be echoing old enough here if this condition is met, and here we're going to echo not old enough. So let's pull this together. We've managed to shorten that into 2 lines of code now, and let's go ahead and check this out in the browser. So when I refresh, you see we get the same result, and again if I change this back to not old enough, you can see that we get not old enough. So you can see here, although a useless example, we have used the ternary operator to shorten our code a significant amount. So that's essentially it. You'll probably find yourself, it's hard to give practical examples in short tutorials, but you'll probably find you may have a series of if statements, and you might want to shorten them and make it a bit more efficient. And in that case, you'd use the ternary operator. As we've seen here, we've created this efficiency here. So that's the ternary operator in PHP.